Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
This society needs a spectacle. It might help us to see some evil. This society needs a spectacle.
On A View from the Outside this week being the 13th of August 2022, we look at exposed, E-X-P-O-S-E-D, exposed, with the view being that as things continue to unravel, unfold, and be exposed in St Vincent and the Grenadines, it is up to each and every Vincentian to pause, take an objective look, and make sound decisions on the best way forward for the country. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary states that to expose is to make known or disclose the faults of someone or something. That definition tells us that when someone or something is exposed, the faults of that someone or something are made known. The definition tells us that when someone or something is exposed, the flaws or the wrongs which some try to hide of that someone or something are brought to light. Last week, on this program, A View from the Outside, we discussed the topic perfidious, and we looked at the untrustworthy way which the ULP government is viewed by many Vincentians, both at home in St Vincent and the Grenadines and in the Vincentian diaspora as well. In discussing this week's program, we ask you, the listener, to also bear in mind the points raised in last week's program. In this week's program, Exposed, we focus primarily on a memorandum from the Ministry of Health, dated the 9th of August 2022, entitled Employment of Health Workers, COVID-19 Vaccination. For context, and to give a full picture, I will now read the contents of the memorandum in its entirety. It is from the Permanent Secretary, or the PS, in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment. It is addressed to staff. It is dated the 5th of August 2022. And as said earlier, it has the subject, Employment of Healthcare Workers, COVID-19 Vaccination. It reads, kindly be advised that on Wednesday, 27th July 2022, Cabinet directed that all healthcare workers, as defined in the Statutory Rules and Orders number 28 of 2021, must be vaccinated against the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, and must receive boosters of 5-month intervals after an initial 2-dose series of an approved vaccine in order to be eligible for employment in the health sector. Please be guided accordingly. The memo is signed by Cuthbert Knights, Permanent Secretary. When the contents of that memorandum were released and exposed, it is said that it created panic, distress, and despair among health workers in the country, particularly among the nurses and other frontline health workers in the country. It is said that they couldn't believe that at a time when other countries around the world were relaxing, reducing, and in some cases abolishing their rigid COVID-19 rules altogether, their government, the regime of St Vincent and the Grenadines, were busy imposing more stringent measures on them. It is said that many of the healthcare workers, including nurses and doctors, were already making provisions to resign from their jobs rather than subject themselves to such draconian directive from the ULP cabinet. According to the memorandum, cabinet, which consists of all the ULP ministers of government, directed that the healthcare workers must be vaccinated and must receive boosters at 5-month intervals in order to be eligible for employment in the healthcare sector. The exposure of that directive from cabinet not only rocked the core of the healthcare workers, but it also caused incredulity generally. It was clear from the contents of the memorandum that cabinet is bent on imposing that mandate or that directive. Social media was abuzz with comments relating to the imposition of more draconian rules upon the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines. And in this case, specifically upon the healthcare workers of the country. The comments were scathing of those in cabinet. Many, despite the regime's amendment of the legislation in St Vincent and the Grenadines to unconstitutionally force the taking of vaccine in the first place, could not believe that the regime could have been so brazen to go one step further to try to impose and subject healthcare workers to such other stringent and callous rules. A view from the outside received from home in St Vincent and the Grenadines, the Vincentian diaspora, and other international allies, an unprecedented plethora of correspondence, emails, texts, WhatsApp messages, etc., asking how can the laws of St Vincent and the Grenadines be repealed to avoid the population of St Vincent and the Grenadines being used as guinea pigs. Of course, the law referred to relate to the recently amended Public Health Act Cap 300 of 2009, which was amended, thus creating the Public Health Amendment Act 2021. It is worthy to note that the Amendment Act to impose such draconian measures on the Vincentian people was passed in the dead of night, in the wee hours of the morning, as the said members of cabinet sat to ensure its passage. Section 2 of the said Amendment Act gives the power to implement extensive vaccination programs. And it is under the said Section 2, referred to in the memorandum which caused pain and heartache to many healthcare workers, that the statutory rules and orders number 28 of 2021 is based. An in-depth discussion on that will no doubt be for another time. Once cabinet realized that they were exposed when the contents of the memorandum were revealed to the world, and once they became aware of the backlash which they faced, they convened a press conference to try to explain, many say, to put their spin on the memorandum. Present at the press conference were the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Finance, and the said Permanent Secretary, who is said to have signed the memorandum. The unconvincing explanation given by them, the three ministers of government, is that cabinet did not give such a directive. They lamely and in a general way said that the notes of cabinet were mistranscribed. They didn't or couldn't say which part or parts of the note or notes were mistranscribed, as they said. They didn't or couldn't say how the memorandum is as specific as it is. Booster shots at 5-month intervals. Interestingly, the permanent secretary, the one who is said to have signed and issued the memorandum, sat in that meeting and did not utter a single word on the subject. He sat in complete silence. Following the press conference, many people have expressed disbelief in the explanation given. Many people have said that their true intentions, that's Cabinet's true intentions, are in fact stated in the memorandum. Many have said that because they have been exposed, because they have been found out, they were forced to come up with the lame excuse that they did. Many have said that all they succeeded in doing in the press conference was to further expose themselves and to show to the world how untrustworthy they in fact are. Many have said that they are in fact nothing but perfidious. One of the things which that entire fiasco has shown is that the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines in general, and workers, healthcare workers and others in particular, must always be on guard, because the ULP cabinet is capable of and seems bent on, for whatever reason, springing similar directives on the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines. It is imperative that everyone stands guard and be ready and willing to expose them whenever they dare come up with any such directive in the future. Teachers, especially those who are now invited to reapply for their jobs after the government, the said cabinet, callously fired you, you need to be vigilant. Be careful lest you sleepwalk into working conditions which become too onerous for you. Stand united. Listen to your union. They are there to look after your best interest. Another thing which the debacle of the memorandum has shown is that once they, the ULP government, the cabinet, once they find themselves exposed and once they are aware that the backlash will be severe, they retreat. That ought to be a positive lesson for everyone in the country. Be willing and ready to expose them. Be willing and ready to let them know that it is you, the people, who have the power. Be fearless. Do not wait for them to come for you before you resist. Stand united, always for the benefit of all Vincentians and for the entire St Vincent and the Grenadines. Until next week, this is Brereton Horne with a view from the outside, with a reminder to send your feedback as usual to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. We also invite you to visit and like our Facebook page at A View from the Outside, and also to visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at JMB Horne. Have a pleasant Saturday, have a wonderful Sunday, and have a productive week ahead, being willing and ready to have the regime and specifically the cabinet of St Vincent and the Grenadines exposed.